Okay, so we have DataDefender here. And the idea and what we've achieved with this tool is that it looks at where attackers are generally trying to get to, and that's the data that you have stored in the cloud, right? So much of your data has been migrated over to the cloud and generated in the cloud, and now it sits in the cloud. And of course, that can mean AWS, Azure, GCP, Google Drive, SharePoint, OneDrive. The list just goes on. And these are targets for attackers. Prices per records have continued to go up for sensitive information, and pretty much every organization has a treasure trove of sensitive information that they are storing in the cloud, and that is the ultimate target of these attackers. So this tool gives you all of the different capabilities that you need to protect that data, right? It gives you all the ones that you do need. You need to inventory your data. You need to classify your data. You need to look at attacks. You need to look at other misconfigurations. You need forensics tools as well. But it doesn't give you any of the tools and the capabilities that you don't need, right? And what this is designed to do for folks with smaller security teams is we understand folks are understaffed. It's overwhelming at times. And what we're giving them is the ability to not create more work for themselves, but to actually save work, sleep better at night, and make sure and rest easy knowing that their data is safe in the cloud. So first, we're going to start with the data security insights. And this is really built for if you're new to the tool and trying to figure it out. It walks you through everything. Where's my data stored? Where's my sensitive data? What's publicly accessible? What are the attacks looking like? What other misconfigurations I have? So on and so forth. But we want to start with this idea of how do I actually go figure out what resources I have and where my data is. And so you can very quickly answer that question in the data stores page. Looking at everything across AWS, Azure, Google Drive, OneDrive, the list goes on. All of the inventory documents are easily accessible here. And they're very easy to query as well. And what you're able to achieve here is that you know what you have, because if you don't know what you have, especially some of the sensitive data, how are you even going to begin to secure it if you don't know where your data sits, right? So the next thing that we tackle here is public resources, right? And this is a tricky task to accomplish because at the end of the day, some data needs to be public, and some of it you absolutely cannot have public, like sensitive info. So what we've given you is the ability to actually manage these public resources, because most organizations have public resources, right? How are they going to differentiate between the ones that are supposed to be public and the ones that are absolutely not supposed to be public? And what happens if a developer makes this mistake, right? What happens if they accidentally set a bucket as publicly accessible, if they accidentally replicate an EBS snapshot to a different account and that's set as publicly accessible? The list goes on here. And what you're able to do is you're able to look at all of these and they'll show up in the order that you need to review them. Okay, this publicly accessible bucket has data classification results. It has sensitive data in it. That's priority number one. We need to investigate this. If not, go into the console and shut it down immediately. This also has some other security holes on this bucket, or misconfigurations. If there were attacks on this bucket or that involved this bucket, they would show up here. And what we've given you is that ability to actually manage it. So you come into the screen, you only get a couple rows. Okay, these are newly publicly accessible resources. You get them as soon as they get flipped. And so as these attackers are looking for these resources, you can get ahead of them. You can say, yep, somebody made a mistake, or no, this is completely fine. There's no sensitive data in there. That's approved. And you can change the status, set as risk accepted, and we won't bother you about it unless we find sensitive data in that resource again. So this brings me to data classification, and I talked about that a couple seconds ago. We've done this for a very long time. We are antivirus product. We have a ton of experience. We've been in business for the better half of a decade with it. And so we have this very robust and very deep data classification, right? We don't have restrictions on file sizes, file types, and we're confident that you can scan the entirety of your cloud environment or environments, again, working across AWS, Azure, GCP, OneDrive, Google Drive. The list continues to go on, and know exactly where your sensitive data is. But what's important here is that we're not doing classification just for the sake of classification, right? Where it's actually feeding into other parts in the console. So if I go back up to data stores here, if I want to know where my sensitive data is, I can find my classification matches. Same as I showed you earlier with public resources, and potentially even cooler and even more important is if there's an attack that's going on, you need to be able to know whether or not that deals with sensitive data, or if sensitive data is in that blast radius, right? So when somebody is doing something in your account, of course you need to know. And what you don't want are constant alarms that are going to waste your time and cause you to miss real attacks, right? So we have a two-pronged approach, right? We monitor these events as they appear. Something like, for example, deleting a CloudTrail trail. It might not be an attack, but it's something that you need to know about as a security professional, right? Maybe they're trying to escalate their privileges. Same story, right? But the cool part and the more important part is that we're able to take all of this data and we're able to tie it together into something meaningful. So, and what I mean by that is our multi-stage attack detection. So attackers usually start with a single step. They get a foothold into the environment. They find credentials or keys, and a lot of the time they'll just put their hands up and say, yep, we're good for a while. And then they'll come back. They'll try to escalate their permissions. They'll figure out what's going on in that account, what data they can steal, and then they will slowly move towards the actual attack, right? And so this is a game changer because it doesn't matter how an attacker goes about it, right? They can skip steps. They can take an unlimited amount of time between steps, and we're still able to kind of take that data, correlate it together, and put it into an attack chain that actually makes sense to you, that you can investigate, and that you can stop before it gets to the bottom, and results in data being lost, stolen, encrypted, ransomed, whatever that might be, right? So there are also some security holes and some misconfigurations, right? And you need to go through and you need to lock down all of the security holes. You need to reduce your attack surface. So, for example, we make sure that, let's go to some mediums here, MFA delete is enabled if it needs to be, right? Cross-account access is dealt with if it needs to be. The list goes on, and what we're doing here is the ability, what we're providing is the ability for customers to make sure that their security holes are plugged up, that their attack surface is as narrow as possible, so that they will see less frequent, hopefully none, and absolutely none, suspected attacks in this portion of the console, right? Another thing that we've built, and this is super cool, is exposure discovery, right? And so DataDefender in almost its entirety is a blue team tool, right? Security professionals use it. CISOs use it. Everybody on the security and technology organization uses it. But it's also one perspective, right? You need to be able to get that red team perspective. And so what we've built is the ability for you to go to your own website and see what an attacker sees. So, for example, looking at our marketing site here, you can see that we have an AWS account ID here. And this was actually resolved from an S3 bucket hosting our antivirus CloudFormation templates, right? And so from here, you can actually scan that account. And if you didn't know, AWS inventories all publicly accessible EBS snapshots and more resources. And then you can actually find, for example, publicly accessible EBS snapshots. And if you want to go a step further, and you absolutely should, you can actually scan these for sensitive data, right? So this is absolutely critical too. It can run on a schedule. It can notify you when it finds results, but you need to make sure no marketing person made a mistake, set something as public, and that enables this whole other string of attacks on your environment, right? So there's a lot to go through here. There's a ton of features, but it gives you everything from forensic analysis. You can look through the logs and the data your CloudTrail, your S3 server access logs. But it's really everything that a small security team needs to secure their data and prevent it from ending up ransomed or stolen or used inappropriately. And so, as I like to say, the idea is all the features you do need and none of the ones you don't need, and simplified and easy to roll out and easy to work effectively with a small security team. So come check out DataDefender, look at the link below, and try it out for 7 days, absolutely free.